All right, what's going on, y'all? We're back. We got another 7 round mock draft this week. Um, it is April 1st. We are officially 3 weeks out, 24 days, to be exact, away from 3 weeks out from NFL draft week, 24 days away from the NFL draft night one on April 25th. Um, and today I do this every year. If you're not, accustomed to my channel, I do this every year. I always do a 7 round mock draft with a team with the number one pick in the draft, and this year that is the Chicago Bears. Um, I know I just did a 7 round last week with the Vikings, who are also in the same division as them. But yeah, uh, I do this every year, like I said, and let's go over here and take a look at the Chicago Bears depth chart. All right, so looking at the Bears depth chart, starting over here on the offense, like we always do with the receivers, I think this team already is a improved team from last year. This is also a team that towards the end of the year, kind of put their foot on the pedal and started winning football games and ended up, I think, with 7 wins. Seven. I gotta look that up now because now I'm gonna be itching at myself to figure out. I thought they went 7-10, but I don't want to be wrong here. I don't want to sound stupid. They finished 7-10, which was tied for last in their division with the Minnesota Vikings. I think they could definitely be looking at third place in their division this year. I honestly, depending on how certain guys that have came in play, I honestly think if this is the same team from the last, I don't know, 6 weeks of the NFL last year, with this better talent that they brought in plays well, I realistically think this is a at least 8-9 team. I think ceiling would be, I don't know, 10, 11 games, maybe 11 might be stretching it. 10-7, I think, is probably their ceiling. Depending on how they draft. Obviously, Caleb Williams is going to be their quarterback, and then how rookies come into play, whoever they take at 1-9, if they take at 9. And then, you know, some guys that we're about to talk about, such as Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, come in and play also. All right, so getting started at the receivers, you've got DJ Moore, who you brought in last year in the trade for the number one overall pick that also acquired the number one overall pick this year. When you traded your number one overall pick last year to the Carolina Panthers for them to select Bryce Young, and you got DJ Moore as part of that return. He had an amazing year in Chicago, alongside nobody really. I mean, Darnell Mooney was okay. He leaves. You lose him to free agency to Atlanta. You go in, you trade a 4th round pick, and you pick up Keenan Allen, who I think has 1 year left on his contract. So in that case, you're looking at probably only having Keenan Allen for this year, which is a very good receiver to go and bring in when you've got the number one overall pick that you're going to take a quarterback with. And then you've also got a guy that you drafted in the 4th round last year, Tyler Scott, and a guy that you drafted in the 3rd round 2 years ago out of Tennessee, Velus Jones Jr. You've also got, I honestly, I'm not too familiar with Colin Johnson or Simba Webster. And then you also got a guy like Dante Pettis. I think wide receiver is definitely in play for them in this draft. Moving to the offensive line, you've got a guy that you drafted in the 5th round last year, Braxton Jones, 2 years ago, that didn't play absolutely terrible at left tackle, and then right tackle. You got your 1st round pick, Darnell Wright, out of Tennessee from last year. And then you've got Tevin Jenkins at left guard, who you took 2 years ago in the 2nd round, in 2021 in the 2nd round. And then you've got a guy, Nate Davis, that you gave a big contract last offseason from Tennessee. And then their center position's kind of up in the air, according to our lads. I figured Coleman Shelton would be your starter, a guy that you just signed out of free agency from the Rams, but it's listing Ryan Bates that you also just signed. Or no. Did they trade for Ryan Bates? They might have traded for Ryan Bates from Buffalo. But I think that their offensive line, I don't think there would be a pick that you would necessarily take here in this 1st round, especially at 9. You're gonna have, probably Olu Fashanu, Tulisa Fuaga, and a few more interesting offensive linemen sitting on the board when you're there at 9. But I think that they could definitely run this back as their starting O-line next year. I would say maybe a like depth pieces or like a long-term replacements. Nate Davis, even though you did give him that big contract, didn't play that well last year. The center is a question mark. I think your tackles, you're probably fine right now. And Tevin Jenkins has been okay, I'd say. I'd say this line is very just okay. And so that's why I think that you could run it back with this line. But I could see them taking a lineman in this draft also. Then at tight end, obviously you've got Cole Kmet, who's been very good for you, and then you just brought in Gerald Everett out of free agency from the Chargers. Then at quarterback, obviously you're going to take one at 1. Tyson Bagent and Brett Ripien are your current quarterback room. And then running back room, you just went and got DeAndre Swift. Kind of a surprise. You had Dante Foreman there last year alongside Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson, who all three were battling injuries. And you go get DeAndre Swift, who had a good year in Philly. I think that's a really good pickup for them. I do like Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson though as rotational and a backup backs in that backfield. Then you move to the defense. You got a guy Montez Sweat who traded from Washington last year. And then also with the edge, you've got DeMarcus Rocker and their edges are not great. Montez Sweat after being traded was amazing, but the rest of the guys like DeMarcus Walker, Dominique Robinson, Jacob Martin, these guys weren't or aren't that impressive. I think edge is definitely in play. I think that at that 9 spot, I think that edge or the next position we're going to talk about, interior defense line, is definitely a big key. I think at that number 9 position in this year's first round. And then in the interior, you got Gervon Dexter, who you drafted in the second round last year out of Florida. That's about very mid. And then you've got Andrew Billings, who was a free agent out of Las Vegas. I can't remember if that was last year, 2 years ago, or 3 years ago when they signed him, but it was pretty recent. The middle linebackers, you've got 3, I guess you could say solid, I'd say starter caliber at least. Middle linebackers and TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds, who signed both last offseason out of Buffalo and Philly, gave big contracts to both of them. And you've got Jack Sanborn, who was a 2022 guy. And then Noah Sewell is a guy that has a lot of potential, and I just don't think he's ever going to reach it. But I think middle linebacker depth or inside backer depth is definitely in play for them. Just because you don't really have too much depth behind your 3 main guys in Edwards, Edmonds, and Sanborn. If one of those goes down with a season in injury, who's stepping up really? And then their secondary, which I think their secondary is the big strength of this team. You've got one of the best cornerbacks in the league, Jalen Johnson. And then you've got a guy that was a rookie last year that was impressive out of Miami, second round pick, Tyreek Stevenson. And then another guy, 2022 draftee, Kyler Gordon out of Washington State. Washington State, one of the 2. That's another thing. I got to look that up now. But he also had a good year last year too. So I think those 3 are definitely like your starting cornerbacks right there. And I think that, Kyler Gordon was Washington. That's what I thought. And you also got a guy like Jalen Jones as a backup. And then their safeties, I'm big on Jaquan Brisker. Kevin Byard bounced around last year and then into Chicago this year. Still had a great year last year though, in my opinion. Still one of the top 10, top 5 safeties in the league probably. And then he also brought in Jonathan Owens from Green Bay as a free agent. I think that they've got solid depth in their secondary along with solid like top end starting guys. I think maybe you could use a backup corner, late day 2 into day 3 area. But yeah, let's get back over here to the simulator and I'll talk about, their official needs, which I kind of already talked about, plus their picks. Okay, so the Chicago Bears. Now, this is where the video might get less exciting or more exciting, depends on how you feel. Chicago Bears only have 4 picks this year. And like I said, I talked about all the trades that they've made. Keenan Allen, I guess Ryan Bates, Montez Sweat, they have 4 picks. 4 picks. Three of them being within the top 100. They don't have a pick past the 4th round. It is number 1, number 9, number 75, and number 122. Now, next year, they do have a first, 2 seconds, a third, a fourth, a fifth, 2 fifths, my bad, and 2 sixths. But their official needs that I have listed, quarterback, obviously. I can see wide receiver being in play at some point. The O-line depth / long-term replacements that I discussed being in play, edge, interior of the defense line, inside linebacker depth, cornerback depth. So with these 4 picks, if you're just straight up picking 1, 9, 75, 122, I'd definitely say obviously Caleb Williams is going 1. And then with 9, 75, 122, I'm probably looking edge somewhere, interior defensive line somewhere, and wide receiver somewhere. However, I have flirted around with the idea of them trading up from 9. I also am going to flirt with the idea of them trading back from 9. So again, like last week, we're going to run 3 mocks. I'm going to stick and pick all 4 picks in 1. I'm going to trade up from 9 and 1. I'm going to trade back from 9 and 1. So let's get into it. We're going to start with the stick and pick. We're going to start the draft. We're on the clock. And obviously, this is going to be the same thing in every one. Caleb Williams, welcome to Chicago. Interesting pick of Quinion Mitchell right there at 8 to the Falcons. Now, with the board following how it is, and I don't think this is totally unrealistic, I do think Joe Alt is definitely going to be there at 7 to the Titans. We've got interesting decision with both the top end interior guys being there with Byron Murphy and Jer'Zhan Newton. Same with the edge, Dallas Turner, Jared Verse both being there, Leatu Latu being there. Rome Odunze is here, and Joe Alt is here. I see so much Rome Odunze of Rome Odunze's game compared to Keenan Allen's. I see so much similarities there. But with the board falling how it is, I think that you're going to tell Braxton Jones to get up there and take Joe Alt. So that's what I'm going to do here at 9 with the Chicago Bears. So now you're looking the board fell a weird way. So now I'd say here at 75 and 122, you're definitely looking edge and interior of the defensive line. Really Tavondre Sweat, Michael Hall are the last 2 guys I like there. And then you add the edge in and Austin Booker's Xavier Thomas. There's a few guys I still like on the edge. So I'm gonna go with Tavondre Sweat, big boy out of Texas, 6'4", like 300 something pounds, I think. To help the interior defense line up out there with Andrew Billings, Montez Sweat, all those guys. And then we're going to look at the edge class that's left. Xavier Thomas, Mo Kamara, and then some guys down the board that I like Jalen Green. But I really like Mo Kamara, Muhammad Kamara out of Colorado State. I do like the Xavier Thomas too because, Clemson, go Tigers. But I do like Mo Kamara a little more. So that's going to be my pick there at 122. Now, this is pretty simple to break it down here. Usually, we're looking at some 7-round mock drafts where we're going to break down 7, 8, 9, 10 picks. Gonna have to break down 4 here. Pretty simple. And I'll see y'all when this gets done simming. All right, so the sim just finished up. PFF does like our draft. They're giving us an A overall draft grade. Again, obviously, every single one they're going to run out of 3 here. Caleb Williams is going to be pick number 1. And is there really anything to say there? I personally, now, this is something that I'm going to give y'all a sneak peek into. Probably going to run a full first next week, last one before the final one. But I'm really, really Drake May started growing me. Like Drake May is growing on me like big time. So maybe from my end, there's a discussion that maybe there's a small discussion, but I don't see there's any way that Caleb Williams is not the number 1 overall pick on April 25th. And then the board fell way in our favor. Joe Alt comes to us at 9. Braxton Jones is probably out the door. Darnell Wright's going to stay at right. Joe Alt's going to go over to left. Tavondre Sweat comes in, helps the D-line room, interior defensive line room, I think, immediately. And Mo Kamara, I think, has starter upside for sure. So I'm going to, fix this up and get into mock number 2. All right, so we're in mock number 2. We're going to start it up. Caleb Williams is the pick at 1. This is going to be our trade back draft. Oh, my God. Malik Neighbors is sitting on I think with the board looking like this, I think there's no way they would trade back. There's no way they would trade back Malik Neighbors, Joe Alt being there. See, this is why. This is why I'm gonna reset this. I'm gonna reset this, guys, just because there's no way they're gonna trade back. My trade up was gonna be um for Malik Neighbors anyways. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna trade up early. It's gonna be the Chargers, I think, is the most realistic, even though they just made a trade. We're gonna give them one. Sorry, no. Timeout. We're gonna give them 9 and Carolina second for 5. I don't know if that would get accepted. It doesn't. We'll throw an extra in there. We'll throw 122 in there. All right, so that gets it done. We're going to send 9, 122, and the Carolina second rounder for next year from the Bryce Young trade for 5. We're going to start the draft, and we're going to take Caleb Williams here at 1. And we're on the board at 5 again. Marvin Harrison Jr.'s here. Yeah, I just don't think Arizona doesn't take Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, I think I'm gonna do what I like to do here. We're gonna say that was Malik Neighbors. But then trading 122 does hurt you a little bit because now you got to choose. Do you want to go D line or edge here? Devondre Sweat's here again. Let me see what edge players are here. Gabe Murphy, but I think I'm gonna be chalk here. I think I'm not gonna have fun like I usually do. I'm gonna take Devondre Sweat again. So when this sim wraps up, because I don't want to sit here and wait for 150 something picks to be sent. So I'll check back in with y'all when that gets done. All right, so that's the wrap of number 2. This is the trade up draft. Again, PFF loving it, giving us an A+ this time. Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think that Marvin Harrison Jr. would be at 5. That would be Malik Neighbors, in my opinion. But that's how the board fell. We'll just say that's Malik Neighbors if you want to. But this would be such a dream scenario. I think if Marvin Harrison Jr. is on the board at 5, I think Chicago needs to offer a lot to the Chargers to get up there to 5. Now this is the most realistic spot I see them trading up to is 5. The problem being is they did just do that Keenan Allen trade, and I feel like it's rare for a team to make 2 trades, within whatever like that. But you're trading 9, 122, and a second round pick for Marvin Harrison Jr. and or Malik Neighbors. I'm really high on Malik Neighbors too. I think that you definitely do that. You have him, or whoever that receiver is, even if it's Rome Odunze, you've got them with their 5th-year option, I think, on top of Caleb Williams with his 5th-year option. So you're going to have them for 4 to 5 years. Why would you not do that? You know what I mean? Plus, you got DJ Moore. Plus, whoever you bring in can learn from DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. So, I mean, that's an insane offense at that point. And then again, Devondre Sweat. And then I'm not even going to pause it. I'm just going to go right back into it. You don't know my settings. This is how I run it. I usually do provisional value. I take up 2 slots, I think, or maybe it's just 1. Draft for needs, I take up 1. Randomness, I take up 1. Let's enter the draft. This is going to be our trade back draft. I'm going to trade back. Ooh, maybe I'm not. I was going to say I'm going to trade back right now, so that way I can't be tempted if somebody crazy is on the board at 9. But I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to start the draft. I'm just going to trade back no matter what the board looks like, even though they're going to leave me Joe Alt and Rome Odunze again. I really like Rome Odunze fit if they were to stick and pick, and Joe Alt's not on the board like I don't think he will be. Dallas Turner and Jared Verge going in the top 10 is interesting. I think other options in play if Joe Alt isn't there like he was in that first draft, or if Joe Alt and Rome Odunze aren't there like I have him being, I would either go, I think, Byron Murphy just because I'm that high on him, or probably Dallas Turner. But I also think Dallas Turner is going to go here at 8. So there's that. We're going to trade back a team that needs a tackle, I guess. Well, no, Indianapolis is going to be the team that wants to trade up. They're going to be the first team that wants to trade up. We're going to give you 9. You're going to give us 15 and 46. They accept. We resume the draft. Jerzon Newton's here. Tulisa Fuaga's here. Byron Murphy's here. Byron Murphy is definitely gonna be my pick here at 15 for the Bears. I think that makes a lot of sense for them. I just think that makes too much sense for them, matter of fact. So you got your defensive lineman, you got your quarterback. So now you're looking edge potentially with this extra pick. Probably gonna be some good players here, such as maybe Braylon Trice, Chris Braswell. I know a lot of people like Marshawn Needland. I like. Braylon Trice is gone. Make sure they didn't drop him again because they dropped him the other day. I'd say edge is in play. I would say receivers in play. Zach Frazier being on the board, I think, is an interesting, potential pick. Same with Mike Sanders still. Ruka Roro being there, even though you already went D line. I think I'm not huge on these receivers. Roman Wilson, Jalen McMillan, maybe. I do think you could use maybe a slot receiver, and maybe you could put Jalen McMillan or Jalen Polk in that role. I like Roman Wilson. However, I'm gonna opt on the side of more positional need, and we're gonna go Marshawn Nealand for that edge spot need there at 46 from the trade back with the Chargers. Then you're sitting here at 75 with a guy like Jaden Hicks sitting on the board. It's almost like you gotta take him, right? Johnny Wilson still being here, I think, is gonna have to be my pick. Oh, Malachi Corley. Big Malachi Corley fan over here. I think it's a really good pick for them. And at 122, you can really go BPA, whatever you really want to. You got your quarterback, you've got your wide receiver, you've got your edge player, and you've got your interior player. If you want to double down the edge, Mo Kamara just went. Xavier Thomas still sitting here, you could double down. Or you could take that corner depth or linebacker depth, maybe that I mentioned earlier. And we haven't taken a corner yet. I think Jarvis Brownlee Jr. is going to be the pick here. Looking at the offensive lineman left, maybe you go after Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State, actually. Maybe if Nate Davis doesn't work out, that's the thing. You could double down with Xavier Thomas, like I mentioned. But Jarvis Brownlee Jr. being here, they just took Josh Newton from me also. I'm going to go Jarvis Brownlee Jr., the corner out of Louisville there at 122. And then I'll see y'all when it gets done simming again. Well, actually, what if I just got a thought in my head. What if I trade up? What if I trade in here? 189. I just don't know what the board. The only problem with that is I don't know what the board looks like. Jalen Green went. I don't think they need to know. All right, I'll see y'all when it gets done sitting. All right, and PFF gives us an A grade. So again, took Caleb Williams at 1. Death taxes Caleb Williams at number 1 overall at 2024 NFL draft for the Bears. Then this was our trade back draft, like I had mentioned. We traded from 9 to 15 with the Colts, acquired 46 in the process. We got Byron Murphy, a guy that I really like. I think could be an immediate impact for them on their defensive side of the ball. At 46, you got Marshawn Nealand to pair with that. He's probably running Marshawn Nealand opposite side of Montez Sweat with Byron Murphy and Andrew Billings in the middle. And then you went and you got Malachi Corley, I think a very good weapon, gadget player, slot receiver that I think could work out in that wide receiver room in this system with Caleb Williams and everything. And then you also went and got Jarvis Brownlee Jr. corner out of Louisville. But I appreciate y'all watching. I appreciate all the love on the Vikings video last week. First, the video with a thumbnail that was cool. Decided to make that I think after I had recorded the video, so that was maybe a little bit of a surprise. First ever video with a thumbnail. I'm proud of myself for it, but yeah, probably throw one up this time. And yeah, Chicago Bears 7-round mock draft. Next week we'll have a first full round, I think. And then let's see what. So then that'll be the 8th, I think, the 8th. 15th might run a full division 7-round. And then I think I know this is way out there and I'm not sure yet, but that week of the draft, I might drop a video every day. And leading up to draft day, I'm not sure. I would like to do one more first full round for sure before draft day, which I'll drop one on draft day, which I always do. And then I would like to drop probably another Steelers 7-round mock draft at least, and then try to do a whole division. I like the thought of the AFC East, I think. But yeah, enough yapping. Appreciate y'all support as always. Appreciate the love, everything. See y'all next week. Peace.